This lecture is about the Anasazi in my series called First Nations of Anahuac. Anasazi means ancient enemy in Dene or Navajo. The Anasazi also call themselves Hitsatunam, which means ancient ones in the Hopi language. The Hopi are one of the groups that descend from the Anasazi. When you think about the deserts of the Southwest in this area that is known as the Four Corners between Utah, Colorado, Arizona, and Nuevo Mexico, you think of a desert and a hard climate that may be hard to live in. But this is the place that the Anasazi or the Hisatsu call home. A place of rocks, sand, almost no vegetation now, but things were different in the past. This is a place where the creator of these people placed them. And because that creator placed them here, it meant that the creator provided everything that was needed for them to thrive and live a good life here. This is the largest and most prominent Southwestern people. These are the ancestors to the Pueblo, from Laguna, Hopi, Acoma, and the Zuni people. The Anasazi are believed to have inhabited the Four Corners area of Colorado, Utah, Arizona, and Nuevo Mexico as early as 2000 before our current time. The main place of trade for the Anasazi was Chaco Canyon, a place that is located about 100 miles northwest of Albuquerque, a place that was built with roads that led to it. These roads had signal stations that marked the route with small fires, and these roads were used mainly for commerce. The other two locations for the original Anasazi are Mesa Verde in Colorado, and Cayenta in Arizona. There's other ones such as Pueblo Bonito that we are going to talk about in the next slides. So here's a timeline of the Anasazi. It's believed the Anasazi emerged as a defined culture around the year 1200 before our current era as hunters and gatherers, and between the years 700 and 1130 of our current era, there's an increase in population, and the increase of population happens because there is constant, dependable rainfall, which allows for more permanent settlements and larger communities to thrive. Around the year 12,000 of our current era, villages began being picked in places more suitable for war, indicating that a war was starting or there was conflict happening between the Anasazi people or with their traditional enemies. By the year 1300 of our current era is the fall of the Anasazi. Scientists and historians don't know why they disappear, but as you have learned in other lectures, there are many theories that apply to them. A person that does not understand history, our archaeology or anthropology oftentimes will come up with all kinds of conspiracy theories of how they disappeared or where they went. But in reality, as I have said in other lectures, and as I have said in this lecture as well, these people have descendants, and those descendants are still alive today, and they still have much of this culture still active today in various places in the southwest of the United States. So by the year 490, the Anasazi evolved into a population that settles. They began to settle in Colorado and Nuevo Mexico. Again, part of the reason for this is because of the dependable rainfall that allow for their crops to grow and to take care of a significantly large population. The Anasazi can be divided into two groups. One is the Pueblo, and the other one is the basket makers. These two groups lived differently. The original Anasazi lived in subterranean houses, and the second group lived above the ground home. They built above the ground homes, and these homes would be made or around rocks. The subterranean homes that were built initially by the Pueblo would later on become kivas, and kivas are places of prayer. This is where Pueblo, Zuni, Hopi, and other native groups still practice their spirituality today. The first homes were built by with mud or something similar to adobe, and they call them pueblos. And that's part of the reason why today a native culture in New Mexico are called pueblos. And this is a good example of what these homes look like. Some of these pueblos were built up to 700 feet above the ground. In many cases, these were multiple story groups of dwellings or apartment buildings, if you will. For example, there is something called a Cliff Palace built in Pueblo Bonito around the year 1100 or current era, which had 800 rooms and about 8,000 people possibly living in there. Or some people say more people. And you can see some of these numbers here of how many people and how these people live. The life of the Anasazi can be understood through exploring and adapting archaeological theories to them. But like most indigenous people of Anahuac or Mesoamerica, the Anasazi depended on the one and the most important crop in Mesoamerica, which is corn. The Anasazi spend a lot of time socializing and interacting with each other in open areas. They engage in trade with each other, but also trade with people from other places. The Anasazi are known to be masters of turquoise, and they traded these turquoise all the way to Central Mesoamerica or Semanahuac. Specifically, one of their main trading partners was the Toltecs in Tolan or Tula. And for 150 years, the Anasazi were relatively wealthy people because of this trade. However, when Tolan or Tula declined, they were also affected. It's according to evidence, women spend a lot of time grinding corn. Men spend a lot of time hunting and gathering wood. And a lot of these things kept people very active and very fit because they needed to move around. So I was saying, specifically, Chaco Canyon was a center of trade and culture. And as you can see in this map, Chaco Canyon had roads that connected to other places, other villages, and other people, not just in this area in New Mexico, but also with other people in central Mesoamerica or middle Mesoamerica. So it's important to keep in mind that native people that lived at the same time traded with each other. Sometimes they fought with each other, and sometimes independent or city states that were part of the same culture, sometimes they fought each other. And the Anasazi were known to be skilled engineers. Some of their roads are 10 meters across and extend up to 30 kilometers in a straight direction. So these roads were actually built. Those roads extend from Chaco Canyon about 20 kilometers south in a perfect straight line. And they're known to be very good engineers. The Anasazi were a very spiritual people. They come from an oral tradition where culture was passed down from generation to generation through oral stories, through cultural practices. The Anasazi held a belief that they were in the place where they lived because the Creator had placed them there, and the Creator had given them a great responsibility to take care of this place, and that all the things in the natural world were alive and had a spirit. All of their everyday life was connected to this focus on nature and their spiritual rituals, and they included this spiritual understanding in their hunting, planting, and many ceremonies. They had, like other Mesoamerican cultures that they were connected to, a spiritual figure. In this case, they called it Abayu. This was a plummeted water serpent, with water feather serpent. And this water serpent was believed to be living in the bottom of the world. They call it the bosom of the world, possibly in the underworld. Something somewhat similar to Quetzalcoatl and Kukulkan for other cultures. The Anasazi believe that the current world that we live in, which is the fourth earth, is something that has a destiny that is supposed to go through specific things, which means that there were 3 earths before this one, and they were all destroyed by the Creator for one reason or another. And the Anasazi truly believe that they are the protectors and the people that are supposed to keep balance with a connection with Earth. And if other humans do not honor Earth and honor the spirits of this Earth, we are going to encounter a very violent ending of this current fourth world. Here is a link for you to watch And the Mysterious Disappearance of the Anasazi. Again, keep in mind there is a common thing that happens with Native people, and that is that once these groups uh, increase their population, use a lot of their resources, they end up having to move because it's hard to maintain a large population and make sure that there's enough resources for everyone. Most of these native groups do not disappear. They end up abandoning these locations and building new communities, in some cases smaller communities where they can actually have enough resources to take care of one community rather than one large community. This is the case for the Anasazi, this is the case for the Mayans, and possibly other people like the people of Teotihuacan, the Toltec, and the list goes on and on. I will see you in the next lecture.